Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name's Min, and it must be Tuesday because it's time for another Idea Lab at Nobody Studios. And so, if you're new to the show, what we typically do is we have a guest. We go through some ideas that have been recently submitted, and we kind of freestyle and we talk about some of the ideas depending on how many lovely comments you want to post. We want to make this super interactive, so as we're having a discussion, feel free to chime in and put in comments, everything from where you're listening to the show from to what you think of the idea and how it could potentially be used in your world. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to the amazing Maayan. Hey, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on today.
No, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. So we met a few weeks ago, and I was absolutely blown away with how much you have done already in your life. So I was like, oh my God, I'm like 54. I haven't, and I haven't even done as much as you have. So for our audience, perhaps you can start with a little introduction, talk about obviously you've been an entrepreneur for many years and kind of scaled businesses. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about that, talk about your social media sort of presence. I know you kind of downplay that a little bit, but your statistics are absolutely amazing on that as well. And yeah, feel free to share some introductions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Maayan Gordon, and I got into entrepreneurship when I was 19. I'm now 31. I like to give people it's hard to judge sometimes how people look these days. Everyone looks so phenomenal. Um, and I dropped out of college after about 3 semesters. I was pursuing a chemistry degree and really just was bored in lecture classes, didn't enjoy college, and was spending far too much money for not really enjoying that experience. So I discovered something called copywriting, dropped out, started doing that freelance full time. And then I was in a near death event, which was a gas explosion. And
Oh
that
dear.
really kind of, threw my life for a big loop, so to speak. And took a number of months off from just working at all. And then when I got back into work, I was really just a very different person and had a lot that I realized I wanted to work on. And for me, business felt like intuitively the best vehicle for personal growth. So
Mm,
that's really how I got into business. I've started up 5 different businesses that have all been successful since then.
brilliant.
And social media has been my primary marketing, brand building, and human connection outlet. I've also done trade shows for over a decade, which really has taught me a lot about human experience connection on kind of like a fast pace and how to translate that into digital marketing. I did cold calling, I've done email marketing, I've done every
Wow.
type of marketing and really just human interaction that I could come across. So right now, what I'm doing is focusing on using these developed skills and talents that I have in the marketing space to help other companies and generate ideas and just figure out really where I add value. I think one of the messages that we're kind of that's pushed upon us is that you have to just know what you're good at and stick with that forever. And for me, it's been continual, I think forever until the day I die, hopefully in the far future. I'm going to be figuring it out and figuring it
Totally.
out in different ways as to how I can apply my skills and talents to things. And then, as you mentioned, my social media, I've had quite a lot of success. The most on TikTok. So I've got 2.3 million followers on that platform.
Amazing.
I would say that's the most successful platform from a numbers standpoint, but from a relationship building standpoint, LinkedIn has far outdone any of the other platforms. I've got about 38,000 followers or 36,000 followers on LinkedIn. And then I also have about 38,000 on Instagram as well. And those are my primary platforms. I use Facebook, and I've just started with YouTube Shorts as well. I would say TikTok, LinkedIn, and Instagram are definitely my bread and butter platforms.
Wow. So I'm super jealous. Like I said, like I've been on LinkedIn probably about um must be 7 or 8 years, maybe longer. And yeah, I'm getting close to 25,000, and you've already kind of superseded that already big time. So I'll be coming to you for some tips. Perhaps I should go easy on my dead jokes and actually talk about some value add to kind of increase my followership. And can you tell us a little bit about, because I remember when we spoke earlier, you kind of had initial ideas and you kind of scale these businesses to kind of quite significant levels. What kind of businesses have you created previously?
Yeah, so my first business was a product that me and my husband made up in the smoking industry space. So it was little beads that people would pour in their bongs.
Okay,
Second business, and it was just that one product as the whole business.
keep it simple.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, second business was a sticker printing, graphic design, vinyl T-shirt business, and that was in a wide variety of customers, but we ended up building a really large customer base in the glass blowing industry.
Okay.
Probably because of some of my exposure into the smoking industry, glass blowing has a really strong
Yeah,
crossover
yeah, I
with
can see that.
the
Yeah.
cannabis space.
Mm.
And so third business was a glass blowing business. They finally kind of suckered and pulled me into trying out glass blowing, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So did that business for about 5 years. And then started my consulting business really at the tail end of that business. And once I started making more money hourly in consulting than I was in glass blowing, I decided to do that as a hobby moving forward. And that's a real pleasure to get to take something that you really love but needed to run a business out of and get to switch it to a hobby. And then there's a fifth company that I started with a partner that I actually gave all the equity back into, but he's one of my best friends, Jesse,
Right.
with Champion Empire, and that's really a coaching business that focuses on leadership development, but also, Jesse's just a great guy. Anything that people need help with from a business standpoint, either he's got a way to help people with it, or he's built out this incredible network of other service providers and
Yeah.
accomplished individuals to help with that.
Fascinating. So, obviously you're someone I've seen this firsthand who has a bunch of ideas, all right, and we're gonna cover some today. I'll ask you my favorite question, which is like, where are you when you get your best ideas from my four quadrant boxes? So, is it in the shower? Is it when you're going out for a walk or a run, walking the dog or whatever? Is it on the loo, quality time, kind of looking at your phone, or is it in an innovation meeting? Kind of in a business context.
Yeah, so I would say I'm really blessed to get ideas pretty much everywhere.
Yeah,
But if I had to say where I get the most ideas, I would say in a hierarchical list, number one would be definitely walking out and
yeah,
about,
yeah.
and walking with my phone put away.
Nice one.
Focusing on my surroundings and environment. So,
Mm.
especially the more focused I am on like trees and nature or the buildings, whatever is around me, the more I think ideas my brain pops into my mind in a way that I'm aware of them. I
Yeah,
think probably we all have lots of good ideas that we're not as aware of, and so we just don't have that ability to capture them in the same way as when an idea feels like it really pops into
yes,
your head very
yeah,
like
yeah.
clearly.
Mm.
Next, I would say is probably while I'm eating food, and there's probably some biology around, nutrients and
Yeah,
neurochemicals and
yeah,
eating
yeah.
that
Firing. Yeah.
facilitate that
Mhm.
idea. So yeah, over meals, especially if I'm having meals with other people or I'm having a meal out in a setting. So at a bar or a restaurant somewhere like that. I would say third for me actually probably is while I'm doing other work. So not idea generation specific work,
Sure.
um, but when I'm reading, I get tons of ideas literally in the middle of reading, and that's
Yeah,
a really great kind of capture period for me. I'll be reading a book about breathing, and I'll get great ideas about
yeah,
marketing or like something
yeah,
else that's
yeah.
connected.
That's a
So those
great
would be
one.
the top
Yeah,
three.
yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. And for people listening in, feel free to comment around where you get your awesome ideas. So you submitted a number of ideas to us here at the Idea Lab, and I thought we would start to look at those. And now my best friend is on, so we can start the show properly. Hey, Perry. And yes, it's kind of a non-linear brain seeing ideas everywhere. And yeah, I think the brain is absolutely fascinating. And sometimes when we kind of focus on say, right, I need to come up with that idea, that's the worst time, right? Just let the brain what it do what it does best. So let's jump in and start to look at some of these ideas. So perhaps you can take us through this first one again. What was the inspiration about this? Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about where you were seeing this issue, this challenge, and then we can talk a little bit about how your idea is going to help solve that particular problem.
Yeah, so I've seen this as a lot of my ideas come from like what I personally would love to see created or challenges that I've personally experienced. And optimizing my schedule has been something I've been doing on a regular basis or attempting to do on a regular basis for the past 5 years. And I've come across certain periods in time where, through just lots of testing, there's a particular let's say format or structure I've implemented that has increased my output, my happiness, like every kind of area you could measure from a success standpoint, just because of sometimes seemingly one very small change or sometimes a whole new kind of format or structure for how scheduling can be done.
Hmm.
And the big problem, I think, is keeping track of those changes over time.
Yeah.
I can track the change from one schedule to the next and that immediate change crossover. But over the course of the 5 years, I've got no access to that data. I don't have any clear picture as to how to piece all of these many, many different, puzzle pieces together of my schedule testing personally. And I know that this is true for as an issue for almost I would say every person, because
Yeah.
this is true for mothers and fathers as it is for entrepreneurs, where our schedule and how it's structured has a massive, massive impact on our day
Really.
and our life. And
Yeah.
also that our schedules are often not the same every week. What I'm allowed to do from just time availability standpoint, one week may not be possible the next week because maybe I'm traveling. So I just can't
Mm,
structure
mm,
my schedule that way. But I,
mm.
I firmly believe, again, through my own testing, that there are kind of core underlying principles that can be applied dynamically to whatever our schedule is. So the goal for me, I thought, with AI and its ability to collect data, to process data, and to create patterns, especially predictive patterns, that
Sure.
there must be some way to track our scheduling data if we had some ability to input qualitative and quantitative surveying. So instead of just having, let's say, a productivity score,
Sure.
having a energy score. So after each activity, we're
Yeah.
kind of, maybe like a quick 1 minute little survey or however the app's designed, where we
Sure.
can input some really quick data around what our experience of that scheduled item is like. And
Mm.
then again, let the AI figure out what that means over time. I
Yeah.
think that would just completely revolutionize my own life, not only from again a productivity kind of happiness standpoint, but
Sure.
from a brain space standpoint. I know that I take up a lot of my brain space, even the kind I can't feel or really notice, by thinking about my scheduling. And I first came into awareness of that when my friend Jesse was like, Maayan, you got to use Calendly. And I think a lot
Right.
of
Yes.
us are
Yes.
familiar with Calendly. And
Yep.
before I used it, I was like, okay, but how much time am I actually eating up by doing
Mm.
the little back and forth to figure out the
Yeah.
scheduling? And one,
Yes.
it turns out like at least an hour a week that I was saving, but more than the time, it was the brain space and that
Mm.
kind of cognitive load that was freed up from not having to think about scheduling.
Got
Uh,
it.
so that's where this idea kind of came from.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was I learnt from Dr. Eric, who leads our health and wellness division. He has a live stream he does on a regular basis around peak performance, and he was talking about this terrifying stat, which was, during the whole working day, we're actually only focused for between 2 and 3 hours, and the rest of the time is pretty dead. And that is the time where we actually sort of knuckle down and do things. So with what you've been saying as well, anything you can do to kind of you know optimize your time, because everyone can sit at their desk and say, oh yeah, that was a long day, I've done 12 hours, but you physically kind of look to say, well, what were your outputs, what did you actually sort of achieve, then you're like, yeah, I spent, I didn't really kind of use my time as well. And even a sort of 5-10% increase on what you're currently doing is massive, to not only to yourself but the organizations that people work for as well. So I agree with kind of the advances in AI. If you can kind of spot those patterns and have those little things to energize you and say, okay, that was great, then and also kind of work out what your optimum solution, because we're all different, right? I'm like a morning person. After 4 o'clock, I'm no use to anyone. Oh dear, this started at 4 o'clock, so oh dear. Yeah, but again, if it can kind of learn from your traits and your patterns and how you actually operate, then that's got to be great. And over the pandemic, what we've all learnt is we've all had to adapt and change, and everyone works differently, and that traditional everyone work 9 to 5, that's old school thinking. That's not really how everyone is peak performance.
Yeah, and I think this is a tool that would be really, really valuable to organizations and workers as well, because as you're mentioning, I thought of kind of a great analogy. Vitamins and minerals work together. And so
Mm,
this is why a lot of times people will take supplements and they have no impact, is you
yeah,
need the minerals and the vitamins working together. They have a very symbiotic relationship. And I think that's very true of our work days and our schedules, where there's certain things that we need mixed in, and a
mm,
better kind of work nutrient profile or schedule profile that really optimizes our overall health performance of our productivity.
yeah,
And so, to figure that out would either take you journaling, a really great deal, and then not just the journaling, but then extra lots of time of like looking back and analyzing. And a lot of people don't have those skills. If you haven't
no,
gone through kind of extensive science classes of how to design a science experiment, how to
mm,
collect data, how to analyze data, it's going to be very difficult to do that in a meaningful way. So
yeah,
having technology be able to do that part for us, I think
mm,
really opens up this realm of collective experimentation, where the great thing about AI and the way that these apps are designed, yes, I'm doing the experimenting with
yeah,
my own schedule, but the app also has access to everyone else's data and can start to find real trends across how humans perform, and
mm,
then make suggestions to people based off of that collective data.
yeah,
But I can imagine, it's suggesting, hey, in between meeting A and meeting B, eat an apple. And like maybe that has a profound impact. Or, stretch these 3 specific stretches, do this yoga pose. But I think there's some really easy to implement, non-time, taking things that would have major impact on our productivity levels, so that we're getting,
totally. Yeah,
7-8 hours of focused work
yeah,
instead
yeah,
of
yeah,
2 to 3.
yeah. Good to see you online, Dutch, one of my other new good friends, and who has also submitted some wonderful ideas to the Idea Lab. And yeah, really interesting here, this point you make about 23 minutes for us to focus on sort of, you have one meeting, but what do we do, particularly in the corporate world? It's all back to back to back, There
Mhm.
should be a rule to say, right, you can't schedule a meeting for on the clock, like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, because it's like, okay, I've just had like an hour or a 2 hour meeting. Can I kind of, and maybe like, and again, in the old world of where we used to physically go to meetings and you have to actually walk from one room or one campus to another, and everyone's always late. We had a running joke that every meeting actually started 12 minutes late anyway. Or you just fill up that time. So it's like, okay, this is going to be a 90-minute meeting. And what happens? You just stretch it out and chit chat until like the 90 minutes has gone. And again, with what you're saying, it's like, why can we not optimize it? I always joke in some of the meetings I have in the studio with my colleagues is we have these like 17-minute meetings and these strange times, because that kind of focuses the mind, and it's like, okay, right, that's probably as much energy and like thoughts I have everything else. We could make an hour, but we're just kind of padding now. Let's go away, re-energize, kind of, think of what we've done, and then we can have another 17-minute meeting or 23-minute meeting later on. And it's like, why is it always on the hour or half an hour that we have to do these things? And why not actually work like you were saying? If you could better understand how people work and work together as individuals, what's best for them. So yeah, I really like this idea.
Yeah, I also I'll add just real quick is I would love to see a shift in perspective from businesses specifically that non-business work is contributing work. So for example, I think one area we can all agree upon is reading a book
Yeah,
has, I mean, innumerable benefits, but reading books and educating yourself on things that are not related to the business do impact and add value to the business. They actually help a lot with creativity. They help with being able to have ideas that are pulling from a larger kind of database of information that that person has in their brain. And for me, and again, this is different for everyone, which is why a tool for this is so helpful. But for me, reading in between meetings is a way to allow my time kind of, or my brain kind of time to rest, but
yeah,
is still contributing and, adding value to the work that I'm doing. So if I can take some of the work time in my day, let's say the 8 hours, and let's say 2 hours of that is kind of spaced out in between all of the direct work activities, but are also activities that contribute to the work, even if they are not working directly on the work. And they make me more productive during the time I am doing the work
yeah,
that's on the work.
yeah.
I think that's a beautiful formula for happier, healthier, more productive people.
Yeah, yeah. Jeff here makes a great point about, our physical bodies, and as you say there, it's a REM sleep, and why we wake up in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've got an idea. People keep a little book next to their desks. I do that just in case I think of a new dad joke for like the following days, like LinkedIn. But yeah, and again, Jeff, this is an area that we're looking at the moment, and again, Dr. Eric has been talking about how we're working with some of the world's experts in sleep, to actually better understand the patterns of sleep and REM, and using the data from our watches and our Aura rings to kind of optimize when is the perfect time for each individual to kind of have a good restful night, so they're optimized for the day. So yeah, spot on there. I'm loving all of these comments. Keep them coming. Oh, look at this, and a little plug as well. So yeah, if anyone wants to has an idea from any of these methods that we've talked about today, come and join the gang at we have a crowdfunding round at the moment on republic.com, the Nobody Studios. And come there with, be that your capital or your influence, or your talent, and let's share these ideas and create these 100 companies in 5 years, which is the mission of the studio. So thanks for reminding me for talking about that, Jay. So that's an awesome idea. Shall we have a look at? I think we might have time for one more. So let's
Perfect.
let's let's have a little look at that one. So create a team. Tell me more.
Yeah, so I mean, this creator economy, as we like to refer to it, has exploded since the pandemic, and really, I think it's been evolving for a very long time in different ways. And there's just a convergence kind of happening right now. But one of the and to give people context, I'm a creator. I'm considered an influencer because of my following size. Although I would prefer the term thought leader, but
Nice.
influencer, content creator.
Yeah.
Is something that I am, and so I have, again, kind of insight into what are the challenges that creators and influencers are facing. And a really big one is just not having a team.
Yeah.
So businesses typically will build a
Mm,
team.
mm,
You have someone for your marketing, you have someone for your sales, you have someone for
yeah.
your finances, right? There's kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
key elements that any business that's scaling should have. And certainly there's plenty of solopreneurs, but I think it's better to have a team when you can have individuals focused on the things that they are the best at, and really well defined roles. It's something that really helps prevent burnout, keeps people really energized over a long period of time.
Mhm.
um, and there's really no resource right now for creators to connect with other team members that would really be helpful in terms of them building out their content creation or their influence or their brand into a true business. And it's
Got it.
something we've seen happen specifically on YouTube, I would say is
Yeah.
kind of the premier platform where this is consistently happening. Almost every large YouTube creator has a whole team that
Of
they've built
course.
out, one through necessity, two because it's much more scalable and effective where there's an editor. So I would say
Yeah.
editing is a huge part of content creation these days because
Mm,
video has become so primary on all the platforms, right? So YouTube's
mm,
always been a video
mm,
platform,
mm,
but TikTok's a video platform, and now we have Instagram Reels and Facebook Reels that are really making headway on those platforms as well. And I
mm.
think we're evolving towards a more full video kind of society, even into the realm. I know it's still kind of far away from most consensus, but VR, right? VR is video.
Yes.
Augmented reality is video. So
Yeah.
um, video creation requires, I think, a team to be done at a sustainable high level.
Mm,
So editing is a role. There's, I think, performance or talent. So the person on the
mm,
video, and then there's
mm,
the videographer, the person actually
mm,
capturing the video. So if you
mm,
think about a film, right, it's
mm.
kind of content creation from a video standpoint is a mini version of making a movie.
Yeah.
And so
And if
all
you
of
look at all of the credits at the end of a movie and they go on, for quite a while, right? If you stay till the end,
Yeah,
there's a lot of people
exactly. So
involved.
I
Yeah.
think, if content creators can have a reduced version of that. So, but
Mm,
again, a producer would be
mm,
incredibly helpful to have
mm,
for, and again, many of these YouTube channels will have a producer. And then a manager on the business side who's kind of lining up brand deals or partnerships, kind of helping with that. So there's a lot of different roles. And there's people in each of these roles already who
mm.
don't want to do, for the most part, do not want to do the other parts.
No.
And for editors, they actually have a great position because there's such a need for editors. But I think there's a big desire to be working on one thing cumulatively. There's a desire to be a part of a team. Like
Okay.
content creators, really, I think for the most part, are very energized by human interaction and teamwork, having other people to be creative with. So I think, having a resource to connect these different roles that already exist, that there's huge audiences and members of that role in already, and connecting them to each other, I think
Mm,
is really desperately needed. And we can see already in the market that when that happens, when creators and editors and producers and managers on their own are assembling those teams, they're finding a pretty wild success. So that's really
yeah.
kind of the idea and thought process behind this is we need a platform, almost like, I think there could be many different versions of what this looks like from a user standpoint, but one
Mhm.
of them that my brain suggested is like a dating app, right? Dating apps
Okay.
have become really effective. And
Yeah.
if you could kind of have a profile and swipe through the different options of people who are looking for your type of profile, that could
Yeah.
be, and then you go on like a creator date.
Yeah.
That would be, I think, really fun and amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, this is a crazy stat around, the amount of time you take to actually kind of shoot the video, but then behind the scenes, how many times 10 or whatever, you'll know it from, one of your TikTok videos, how many hours that takes to actually, create that final product, right? It's not just, right, stick a phone in front of your face and, away you go, right? Particularly if you're creating something that's super polished with, all the production, etc. So yeah, finding the right people who get you and can capture, your style, etc. So that sort of smart algorithm matching to the team to say, okay, because you're right, you know what you like and you want to kind of do more of that. So it might be like these particular sectors or this kind of theme. Those are the only sorts of videos I want to kind of direct or edit or be a part of.
Yeah, I think there's a number of different angles that this app I would, want it to kind of look at matching through. One would
Mm.
be, content type. Obviously, that's very important. Another would be, though, I think a shared mission or vision and values, kind of the same thing around a company. If
Yeah,
creators are creating, I say creators to reference all of the
sure, sure.
roles in
Yeah,
this because they're all
yes,
creating in
yeah,
different ways.
yes, yeah,
But if creators can work together and they care about the same thing fundamentally as their purpose in life, they're going to stick together. And that's a
mm,
really big issue across entertainment and creative industries, when you put creatives together, if they don't have aligned vision, at some point they're going to split apart. And we
Yeah.
see this with bands, I would say, as music
Oh yes, of course.
ensembles
Yes.
all the time, right? Which
Yeah.
is, they loved singing together, but maybe they want different things long term, and so they end up breaking up. And I think a big part of success in content creation and with creators is longevity. I mean, this is true of any business, right? The longer you stick with it, the greater your chances are
Of
of
course. Yeah.
success, and the more
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
accumulates. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a big part
We've
of it.
seen that with the biggest superstars on YouTube, right? Like Mr. Beast
Hmm.
and KHD, and it's like where they show the stats of like, here's my first video and here's how many views it got. And sometimes it's like 6 months, 12 months before they start getting traction and actually
Sometimes
earning
2
anything.
years, 3
Yeah,
years of like
yeah,
really like no traction.
yeah,
And then it starts this
yeah.
incredible kind of upswing.
And most people give up by then, right? Because they
Yes,
just think, oh, I've done one video and maybe I'll do another one in 6 months' time. And yeah, that really works. It's
exactly. And then I
yeah,
think a third component that, again, this would require a set amount of data before the app would be able to do this, but having data of which team dynamics have worked and had success in the past to be
yeah,
able to suggest to people, hey, based off of your profile, based off of whatever data it has access to when you just create a profile, here's what we think you need. Because a lot of times creators, especially whether they're younger or older, if they're new in content creation,
sure.
there's a lack of awareness and self-awareness around what it is we're good at, what it is that we want, what is going to work. And so if we can kind of truncate that experimentation period by providing people access to this data, and not the raw data, but in form of recommendation or short video storytelling of other types of teams that have been really successful, I think that can really speed up the process of helping these people reach certain milestones of success, which again aids that longevity factor, and just creates more value in the system.
Yeah,
The thing to remember about these creators is they're not just creating content, they really are creating content that has significant value in our society, whether that's
it's,
from an entertainment standpoint, an
mm,
education standpoint, or a community building standpoint.
yeah, no, totally. So you've obviously sort of, and having sort of being a creator yourself, you've had a look out there. There's nothing really that's kind of doing what you're suggesting at the moment. What kind of things would you kind of research next if this is something that we take forward?
Yeah, great question. So I would research, one, where are the existing communities of these different groups, because there are communities for creators, there are communities for editors. So kind of
Right.
getting a really clear picture on where those communities are and what they look like, and what value they're getting from those existing communities. And
Mm,
then I would say also looking at other similar marketplaces or connective services that exist in other industries,
mm.
to learn from those and see what's working. So there's I have 4 dogs, so I know that there's communities that help connect people
Of
who have
course.
dogs to each other. There's
Yes.
people to
Yeah.
connect, rover.com for like house
Yeah.
sitting.
Yeah.
So just looking at analogous examples in other industries to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
learn more
Yeah.
about what's working and where people get value.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, we're talking primarily today around sort of ideas as super early sort of thinking, but ultimately, as you know, for a startup to be successful, like many that you've created yourself, they have to kind of pay their own way, right? So, how are they actually going to generate money so you can actually keep every all the lights on, as they say? So, have you had any thoughts around what would be the model, the commercial model for this platform?
Yeah, so I haven't spent any time thinking of it, but I can do it right now because I I can have a lot of my own data to kind of process very quickly. So I
Amazing.
think one model would be a low fee membership model, monthly subscription where it's
Yeah.
very clear what they're getting access to.
Yeah,
I think
they're
that would be
getting work out of that, aren't they, ultimately?
yeah, I think it would be pretty easy to justify value
Yeah,
on a subscription model that wasn't too expensive. And then because the audience size is, I mean, humongous when you take into account all of these different industries, I think that's a how do you scale to 100,000, a million, and beyond subscribers or members
Yeah.
into that?
Yeah.
And then once you have members, then there's huge
Yeah.
number of monetization options
Yeah.
through.
One of the ones that just come in my head
Yeah.
is, could you take a cut of the
No,
YouTube?
don't do that. That won't work.
Oh,
I think
see,
that's a terrible.
that's why
I
I
mean, you
don't do
could, but
YouTube.
it's a much less lucrative model. I think
Yeah.
building huge communities and
Yeah.
then in providing them a massive amount of value compared to what they're paying for
Yeah.
opens up way more monetization opportunities than trying to get a cut. And again, just from the creators and the creatives mindset,
Yeah. Yeah.
they've been taken advantage of their whole lives through all of history. Artists have not been valued in society. How
Right.
dare you take a percentage of their
Exactly.
work?
Well, there's that, but there's also the realistic thing around, what is it, like 3% of videos actually, make any money, right? So again, maybe
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
So I think empower and create community first
yeah,
and
yeah,
monetize that.
yeah,
But then once you've helped someone who's making $0 at content creation and now they're making $100,000 a year, there's a
yeah,
lot more money to get
yeah,
from
yeah,
them. And
yeah,
I mean, good luck getting creators who aren't making any money to give up a portion of their sales,
yeah, yeah,
versus
yeah, yeah,
charging them again $9 a month, so whatever it is. Everyone's got $9. So I think something
mhm,
like that would be my kind of go-to
yeah,
model, and
yeah,
that's
much
what
more
dating apps
sensible.
do, right? They
Yeah,
charge a monthly fee. There's a lot of, I think, successful communities that operate off of that model.
yeah, amazing. Oh my God, look at the time, 36 minutes, 32 seconds. That's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for sharing, for me just freestyling and asking you questions that we hadn't even kind of talked about before. So thank you for being such a good sport. Really, really thank you for sort of bringing both of these ideas to life. And as you know, we've green lighted these ideas. So the next stage, I'm really looking forward to how you bring these to life with the second stage of our ideation process, creating the video. So yeah, super stoked to see what's next. But thank you so much for your time, your energy, and passion, and for being such a good sports for coming on the show today.
Yeah, and I'll close out by saying I encourage anyone who has ideas to go through this process and submit their ideas, because this has been really fun. You guys have a really great structure and format, and it feels amazing to actually start to turn your ideas into some version of reality. And I think every action you take to make an idea more than just something in your head really does have impact in the world. And it's crazy where those ideas can take you when you take an action, and they really will lead the way for you. You don't have to have all the answers, but just taking one step forward by submitting one of the ideas, I think, could have who knows what kind of impact
No,
in your own
exactly.
life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's sort of, the pioneers like yourself are sort of, creating the ideas. But then, for anyone listening in, if any of these ideas kind of, think, oh, actually, this is great, and you want to get involved and help continually sort of build on those, then again, get in touch. We're all about, being crowd infused at the studio, right, and kind of creating that community to make things a lot better than they are at the moment. So thanks again for your time, and for people on the call, on the video stream, thanks as always for being so interactive, making my role so easy here, and I look forward to seeing you again same time next week. Thank you now.